Tell us how you met.
We met
You
here.
want to take this one?
Yes. We met here doing The Great Gatsby last year.
And ironically, our characters were having an affair in the show, so we had to get very close very fast. I think one of the first blocking things I had to do in rehearsal was to try and seduce me. So it was it was a very quick sort of getting to know each other very fast.
Yeah, and we had to practice some dance sequences together, so that a lot of one-on-one time there. Got to know each other that way.
When did you know?
I think for me, it was just, I had never played a role like Myrtle before, even remotely close, and it was a little daunting to me and a little scary to play something so completely unlike myself. And I just was completely at ease with Matt, and he just had this way about him that was just really attractive to me.
Yeah, and for me, I guess it was late in the rehearsal process, getting to know her. Every day that I had rehearsal, it was another day to get to know her as a person. And there was a lot of intrigue there.
So it wasn't one moment.
I can't place it on one moment. It was very gradual.
So what's the next step for you?
We're getting married next year. Here, actually,
Yep.
on this stage.
We got engaged over the summer, and we actually just took our engagement pictures last week, and so we will be getting married here next June, and we're excited to start our lives together.
Yeah.
I think a good question would be, why is the theater a place where something like this could happen? What is it about this environment that can lead to people meeting each other?
Yeah. I mean, if you're here volunteering your time and you're putting yourself in a vulnerable, emotional place for fun, you're obviously the kind of person who is going to attract a similar type of person. And I know that's what was always missing for me before, was that element of passion and that finding a person that was similarly wired. So I think just the common interests.
Yeah, common interests, and you get to learn a lot about a person. You can see them as an actor too. You see them, who they are, in person, and who they become as a character, and get to kind of peel back at all those layers.
It was easier to be myself after being something so completely ridiculous around him, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I seem a lot more normal now. Okay, great. So, I don't know, it's just fun.
Yeah.
I think the element of being the kind of person that is creative by nature and wanting to volunteer your time to put yourself into a vulnerable position and be someone else on stage, you attract someone similar who also values that, and just having that similar passion. That was always something that was missing for me in previous relationships, and I think I really found that with Matt.
Yeah. Sharing the same interests is a big thing. You can be with somebody in a different paths, but if you have the same interests, it's really easy to get to know each other that way.
It's a weird world. The theater is a really unique world, and I think to someone who loves it as much as I do and as much as Matt does, it's important to have someone that understands it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just getting to know you as a person versus you as a character, and getting to see all sides of each other. That's a big part of it.
I think for me, the biggest thing was that I wasn't even going to audition for the show. Usually I'm the super prepared person that reads the script 8 months in advance and that whole thing, and I just came on a whim with my good friend Brian, who was auditioning for Gatsby, and I ended up getting called back for the role that I would never have seen myself as. And so this whole experience just kind of showed me what taking a risk can do and what being outside of your comfort zone can do for a person. And it's just been one of the best fluke auditions of my life because of that. In fact, the best.
So we were just curious, how did you meet, and sort of the story and how it progressed here at Civic.
You want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Well, we both showed up at auditions for Sherlock Holmes' Final Adventure back in 2013, and my first impression of Spencer was watching him audition and then talk when he was done with his audition, and I leaned over to my friend and I whispered, wow, he's really committed to the character. He's keeping his British accent off stage. So that's what I thought at first.
And lo and behold, he's kept it ever since.
Ever since.
So no, I'm from England. So, but yeah, I auditioned for Sherlock. I'd been doing some community theatre out in the sticks. I'd always seen these fantastic productions here and decided to come and give it a try, and got cast as Sherlock, which was quite daunting. And got to meet this lovely young lady.
I got to play Irene Adler, who is Sherlock's female intellectual equal, basically. Also in this version, his romantic interest, so we played opposite each other in our first show.
Yeah.
Our relationship actually started a few months after the show closed, however. We really had enjoyed throughout the show getting to know each other and working on lines and running scenes, and just felt really comfortable spending time together. So we had continued our friendship, and Spencer actually became accent coach for another production I was directing.
Yeah, so I started going and teaching, and we just ended up hanging out more and more, and it got to the point where that's pretty much all we wanted to do, was hang out with each other. So we did.
We did.
And I asked her to marry me. Thankfully, she said, well, she didn't say yes, actually. She said absolutely, which was far better.
I hope so.
I know so.
What about theater do you think was conducive to bringing you guys closer together?
For me, I think it was the fact that because our characters had such close interaction, it put us very close together a lot. And we had to trust each other in that circumstance. You know, if something goes wrong in a scene, you have to completely trust the person opposite you that they're going to bring the scene back. You know, it's not going to stall and look awful. So you get that element of trust with each other. And then when you're already playing a romantic interest, there's a closeness that develops. And, you know, while for us at that time it was friendship, it certainly blossomed into far more.
I like to say, best show souvenir I've ever had right here. For me, I think that at first, playing characters who were so often sparring intellectually and verbally back and forth, that was a lot of fun. And I felt like we both gave a lot to the characters, and had a lot of fun playing off of each other. It was very easy to play off of Spencer, even right from the very beginning. And as we built those characters, our friendship, as he said, built as well. And I think that the theater, having a place to play and do things like that, to basically get to enjoy our passions together in a lovely place like this, was a great beginning to our friendship, which turned into something more.
Yeah, really. And for me, I was very nervous as Sherlock because of the volume of lines, and it seems as I get older, I have a harder time memorizing. And Kristen was such a great help. You know, if I asked, hey, can you get to rehearsal a half hour early and just run our scenes together? She would always be there, and it just helped us grow very quickly as very good friends. And, you know, that level of caring and compassion in another person, gratifying. I've been very blessed.
Spencer, can you tell us how you propose?
Well, we used to, after some rehearsals, when we're all wound up, we'd go for walks as groups from the show, and sometimes Chris and I would go just together. And I asked if we could go out to dinner one night, and we had dinner downtown, and then we walked around a lot of the places that had become significant to us from those walks. And we got to the spot where I first told her I had feelings for her, and I dropped down to one knee and asked her to marry me. Silly, really, but
Nah, meaningful.
meaningful.
We were married in June of 2015.
Do you guys have any Civic-specific funny little stories between the two of you? Anything?
Well, we did Sherlock together, and then we went on our honeymoon to England, but just before that Kristen had been cast as Miss Minchin in Little Princess, and I was doing the accent coaching for that. And then I got asked to be captain crew in the same show. So right on the back of getting back from our honeymoon, we got to do another show on the same stage where we met, which just felt like it put a nice little bow around everything at the end and packaged it up for us.
Yeah, it kind of bookended our relationship with Civic, which is a lot of fun.
It is. And, you know, this place is always going to hold a special meaning for us.
That's it.
Tell us how you met and how the Civic played a part in that.
Well, we met in the fall of 1999,
No, wait, you know the date.
October 7th, 1999.
He still has the little audition notice card somewhere.
Yeah, it's,
We hung
I
on to it.
keep it in a drawer, stuffed away, just as a memento, so, the audition card, so.
4.
Scrooge the musical, the North American premiere.
Yep.
So apparently at that point it had not been done in North America.
Hence North American premiere.
Yeah. And so we met during that show, and we were actually cast as a couple. That show was double cast, so we each had 2 parts in the show. And one of the parts that we had was a couple that went to the...
Married. I was married.
Yeah, and
It was
Copper,
the minister cat scene.
the Minister Cat scene where I played the piano and everyone sang the Minister's Cat during
Really cheesy.
the scene with Scrooge's nephew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scrooge's nephew. Mhm.
So,
It was. I had done a couple shows at Civic already at that point, and I was working here in the offices, but it was Jeff's first show. You'd auditioned before, I think.
yes,
You'd auditioned before, but it was his actual first show on stage.
that's correct, yeah.
So, when did you know?
So according to Jeff, he knew before we started dating. He said he fell in love with me before we even started dating. It was just a matter of convincing me. I did not know that quickly because I specifically remember being out doing, I don't know why we were in the lobby doing a dance rehearsal. We were in the lobby doing a dance rehearsal, and Jeff's much quieter than I am and takes a little longer to warm up, and he knew, you didn't know anybody in the cast, I don't think.
I didn't know.
No, he didn't know anyone, and I already had multiple friends. And I remember specifically being off to the side and looking over. He's just standing back, and I said to my friend, "Who's the weirdo?"
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't talk to anyone. He doesn't do anything. But we were we met at the first rehearsal, but we spent a lot of time separated, learning different singing parts and such. But then when we started, actually the first thing we practiced was Fezziwig's Ball. We moved the wall together.
That's correct, yes.
There was some kind of change, I don't know, kind of like turned the wall or something, and we came out of it together at the same time.
Yes.
So that's when we started really talking and our rehearsals together, and then our couple scenes together. So for Jeff, it was a lot faster, but it was still pretty quick for me.
So, what did he do to win your heart?
He made me laugh. I mean, he started
I
talking
made
for
her
one
green bean
thing.
casserole.
He did, because I wasn't going to get to go home for Thanksgiving because of the shows and my schedule, and I was whining because I was like, oh, I'm going to miss out on green bean casserole. And he showed up to the show that night. He had gone to his mom's for the holiday with a container of green bean casserole and left it on my dressing room spot
I
for
snuck
me.
it in. I gave it to one of the other cast members to sneak it in. So
Yeah. So he brought me food, which is always the way to my heart for starters. But in rehearsals, he really made me laugh. But we consider, I don't remember what date the show opened, but it was November because it was the Beauty and the Beast time slot, the Christmas show. So our official dating day was Thanksgiving that year.
November 25th.
Go figure. November 25th of 1999. And we got married on November 25th of 2000.
1 year dating anniversary.
Yep. So it's been almost 16 years of marriage. And so it's easy for him to remember 16 years of marriage
Yeah.
and 17 years
And it's exactly
together.
1 month before Christmas. So
Yep. Easy to remember. He
if I
can't.
forget, I'm really in
You have
trouble.
no excuse.
That's right.
No excuse at all.
I think that's gold.
Okay.
I loved it.
I think just why is the theater conducive to something like this happening? What about that environment can bring people
Well,
together?
everybody was saying that. The one thing that I don't think we heard is when you do a show with people, you become family.
Yeah,
Not just a relationship, like
Right.
a love interest. You become friends. Even if you do one show and you don't see them for a year later you see them, and it's a family reunion. You become so close. You spend so much time with each other. You get emotional in ways you didn't expect. You're vulnerable because you're showing a side of you that people may not see, but at the same time, you really feel like you can be yourself. Theater's such an open, it's such an open group of people who are willing to accept anyone. So you really you learn a lot about people while you're there. I learned he wasn't a weirdo. I mean, actually, no, he's still a weirdo, but he's my weirdo. So.
And I think too that along those lines, I think we both have those values of acceptance, and I think that's one thing that attracts us to the theater, and eventually attracted to each other too, as well, is that we have that overall acceptance as well. So.
I accept a lot about you.
She does.
Mm-hmm.
Or she say puts up with a lot.
I put up with a lot.
So how did you guys meet, and how did Civic Theater play a role?
We met in high school, actually a year before I got involved with Civic.
Before all the adventures started.
Before the adventures started. But we met at City High School, and actually I was a 10th grader coming into City, which was
in
unusual.
1986?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And what's unusual about that is, kids didn't start in 10th grade at City High School, and so I kind of walked into a function. It was like open house or first day of school or whatever, and she was the first person to come up and smile at me and say hi to me, and because I just looked like, how did you describe it?
I don't remember.
Just like the loneliest kid on the planet or something like that.
Because most of us had been together since 7th grade, so new guy.
Yep, and then Civic came in, and she told me, you should come volunteer at Civic Theater, because I had done the Crucible at City. I was in that, and then I thought that was fun. She said, you should come on down to Civic, and so I was the spotlight operator for A Christmas Carol, 1988. And that's when I first started working here. And she was in it, and was one of the dancers and chorus
That's
people.
Right.
And that's when shenanigans started.
Yep.
Many shenanigans.
We became best friends, and there was a group of city kids that would come down to the theater pretty much every day, every show. We were involved in everything. And we'd come down here, we'd work shows. It was our hobby, it was our social life, it was absolutely everything the whole time. So, and we were best friends for 10 years at least.
We were part of the original posse.
Yes.
How did, from this original posse, how did things progress then for you guys to come closer together through the
Well,
Civic?
that's we don't have time for all that.
It's a hard thing to say because we were so close, and as I think other people have mentioned, the feelings when you're working in theater are very intense. You're in the trenches with people, you're trusting them. If things go well, people support each other. If things don't go well, people still support each other. And it's a kind of intimate friendship that you make with people, and somewhere along the line that just turned into more.
It certainly did. So we were friends, and then we dated for a while, and then I moved to Austin, Texas to figure some things out and go do my own thing. And
we
then,
spent 10 years apart where we didn't even talk, didn't know each other, nothing.
Yes, and that's a tale. But
So many stories.
But we got reconnected, and
Through the magic of Facebook.
Through the magic of Facebook.
And we just started talking again and realizing that all the old feelings were there. And
we were finally in the right space to be what we are.
yes.
Civic's been around in your life. It was a part of the beginning. How and why are you still involved today?
Once you've been involved in Civic, I don't know how you could not be involved. I mean,
it's home. I just directed Holes at Civic, and it was like putting on an old, comfortable set of clothes again. It was just, I just kind of, at one point during rehearsals, I just stood around and stared and went, this is where I've wanted to be.
It does feel like
all
coming
along.
home. And
So-
when I started lighting designing here, which was, I don't know, 15 years after, forever ago, it did feel like doing something coming home. And the people here are so supportive, the staff, the cast, the crews, and everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants this magic to happen, and we all work together as a team. And when you go out in the real world and you find people who don't operate that way, it's kind of shocking. If you spend a lot of time in theater, you find
Exactly.
people that don't have that team dynamic, it's kind of hard to deal with.
Have you ever worked on a show together, and what's that like off the clock?
Many shows together. We first started on Guys and Dolls and She Loves Me musicals, performing together.
But now in our professional lives later, I've been your light designer for shows that you've directed several times around.
We were mad at Keith Oberfeld. schedules didn't work out, and I couldn't have my light designer.
For holes.
I know, for holes, but.
But it is funny because when I'm light designing for Jason, I think I'm far more inclined to say things that I probably wouldn't say to other directors. Like, I have opinions, and he finds out about them.
Yeah, can I have that? No.
Yes, sorry about that. So it is interesting. We love working together.
Oh,
absolutely. It's a great artistic endeavor, but I'm not really good at mincing words when it comes to
And I don't want
my
her
husband.
to. I don't want her to be. Absolutely
Tell us about your wedding day.
Oh,
not. It was here.
we
It was
got
a-
married on the stage here, and that was absolutely incredible. It's a blur for me. Other people tell me things about it. No, it's just all a blur.
One funny story was the
Minister.
minister was going over, okay, you're going to say your own vows? And I was like, oh yeah, I think. And she says, no. And I looked at her, and she's like, I will be a mess. I won't even be able to function. And I went,
I couldn't
All
even
right.
stand there without crying. I mean, trying to read vows was not going to happen.
mm-hmm.
But it was incredible because entire theater community packing the auditorium. I don't really like being on stage anymore. It makes me uncomfortable, but there I was.
I will never forget the image of her walking down the aisle with Paul on her arm, walking her up. It was amazing, amazing.
It was a beautiful day, and we had some theater people sing, and we went to one heck of a party and just had a great time.
So, tell us how you met. You want to start, or you want me to start?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. I had been hired as the stage manager for Evita in 1985 at Circle Theater, and I had never worked at the Civic Theater before. And they decided that they needed 2 stage managers for that show. So Dick and Barb Parseca were involved and said, oh, well, we're getting Andy Steers from the Civic because he's the best stage manager in town, and he's worked for Paul Drew for years. And so they brought me over here to the Civic. They were doing Annie during the summer. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
We were doing one of those summer stock things, and brought me backstage to meet this guy who was going to be my co-stage manager. And I was really intimidated because I was mad because I could have done that show by myself, and bring in this big wig from Civic Theater to be the stage manager. So that's how we first met. The first time we saw each other, I think, was here on the stage. He was during setup of a show for Annie in the summer of '85.
So how did your relationship progress after that? What happened after you finished stage managing Evita together?
What came next?
We had a date on my birthday, but during Evita.
Yeah.
But
During Evita. And then afterwards, I think we should have looked up, I think we worked a show here because you were stage managing. I think that was, no, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and Michael Page was the associate director. And we did that show, remember?
Mhm.
And we did My Fair Lady with Jean Reed Bailey
Right.
as My Fair Lady. And we just did a whole bunch of shows here at Civic then the next year together. And then we got engaged and we were married like a year later.
What was that first date like? What did you do? It was your birthday. How old
Well, was that our first date?
I don't
Or
know.
was
Seemed
the-
like it.
Or was the walk in the wood, the walk at Ely Lake the first date with
Mhm.
Barb Parseca along?
No, I don't know.
You don't remember?
I thought it was
Your birthday.
my
That's true.
birthday.
That was just us. Okay. Was his birthday?
Where did you go? What did you do?
Well,
What was-
after the show, we just
wasn't that the Spinnaker?
no.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
that,
okay.
look at us. Sorry, we're not prepared.
Mm.
That little, where's that little restaurant? Is it there anymore?
No, it's not
It's not there. Spinnaker?
there. It was called the Spin.
Yeah, it was really fancy. Had like white linen tablecloth stuff for his birthday, first date. It was pretty cool.
So you started out as stage managers together, and then you just shared with me you were the first house managers together. You do a lot of stuff in pairs. Talk to us about the house manager experience here at Civic, and were you married when you started that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I continued to stage manage, and then she decided to do some help with the ushers and so house manage.
Right. I remember Paul calling us into his office. I'm thinking of having some people out in the lobby. You know, a lot of theaters are doing house managers. I think you guys would be good to do that together. And we were like, what is that? So no theater had one at the time. And so Andy stage managed most of the shows, and I would be out here in the lobby. And sometimes, was there ever a show you didn't stage manage for a while?
Well,
He would come out here.
I
he
didn't
might-
stage manage every show. I just usually was the bigger shows, just because that's where they
Musicals.
needed, especially musicals and the children's shows, where there's always lots of things happening, and kid casts. They're always
So
fun.
then we'd just drive down, he'd stage manage, I'd house manage. And then one of our favorite stories, I just saw Lou Vanderhade the other day, who we used to run the box office. And when our first child was born, we used to bring him down here, and he'd sleep. It was an old stairwell over here, which doesn't exist anymore. And we'd put him, and he'd sleep under the stairs with Lou Vanderhade while we were house managing and selling tickets during shows. So
So would you say the Civic Theater is a family, a part of your family then?
I'd say yes.
Mhm.
How long have you been married?
30 years.
Do you guys have any funny stories about stage managing together, or anything interesting that happened here that would make a funny little story?
Or Pam, have you ever directed and you stage managed, or?
I have to think. Well,
Yeah, Les Mis.
yeah. Well, at Civic, I directed James and the Giant Peach, and he designed the set for that here at the Civic Theater. Remember that?
Sure.
Um,
I did hire a scenic artist because I'm a builder, not per se
A
an
hammer
artist.
and then he has done some stage managing. He has done some stage managing of some major shows that we've done at East. So when we did Les Miserables, he came in and did that because it was so huge, and stage managed that for me. I would say we don't do as much together anymore. He works at different theaters, and I'm just at East Grand Rapids at the high school.
What do you guys think it is about the theater environment that can bring people together? Nancy just asked you that.
No, I'm saying, turn your eyes this
Yes.
way.
You want to say anything?
No.
No. I think, though, don't you think, it's the, all theaters have a sense of family, not just the Civic. And when people work creatively together, I think that brings them closer together. And when you find people that you can be organized, have fun with, and produce something that's artworking, there's a bonding there. You know, so I think that's why you see a lot of theatrical romances.
And especially most of them are volunteers, and so they really want to be here. They really are enjoying it. They keep coming back, and so that since everybody wants to be here, not just doing a job, that makes it a much more of a family environment overall.
And you meet people with like interests then that are enjoying what they do rather than it's a job.
Awesome. We're good.
Awesome.
We didn't
Thank
have a
you
funny
so
story
much.
though.
Sorry.
Do you have one?
Oh,
Yeah,
My
roll
Fair
it,
Lady,
roll it.
Jean Reed Bailey, and the set
Oh,
falling on her.
yes,
Is that a
yeah.
good one?
Well, it didn't fall on.
Well, it didn't fall on her because you saved her.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay. So in a production of My Fair Lady, before we were married, so we must have been engaged, I think you were stage manager. I was
Oh, yeah.
either props or ASM because I did props for a year. I think it was ASM. And a set piece wall came down, and Jean Reed Bailey's sitting there, you know, got to have tea because I'm learning to speak proper English, and the wall just kept
One side of it
going.
let go, and so
It was just coming
came
down.
more down.
And I remember seeing Andy running onto the stage going, okay, we have to stop the show. It's, you know, good. And I
It was
was
a
like,
dress rehearsal, so
Still
we
was-
had an audience.
and Dick Parseka was there too, running out, and they're up there, and I'm like, what's going on? You know, I'm in a headset. So that to theater people's funny stories. And nobody got hurt.